So like I was saying, one of the beauties of the Catholic Church is that we look at the holistic person. So we don't just look at the body, we look at the spirit too. So a lot of doctors might push a treatment, might say, oh, you should do in vitro, you should do this. And they're not looking at the spiritual ramifications of what these treatments do to us, to our souls. But the church obviously looks at that and looks at the entire thing. So as Angelique mentioned, Pope Paul VI in Humanae Vitae, he really exhorted people to look for a way to treat infertility, obviously within the dignity of the human person. And there was a doctor in Omaha, Nebraska, Thomas Hilgers, who took that and he created a program called Natural Procreative Technology, NAPRO technology. And that it's basically, they do, just women's health in general, but they've really specialized in infertility. And people don't really know about it. I mean, people are starting to know a little bit more about it. They have the Pope Paul VI Center out in Omaha. And now they're, spreading throughout the country. They have fertility care centers and doctors who are being trained. They have a fellowship program now that, doctors can go to Omaha, get a fellowship, and then they go practice in different parts of the country. And they have managed to have a success rate of almost 60 to 80%. At least this is, we have statistics from Dr. Hilgers in Omaha. He says he has a success rate between that depending on the underlying cause of the infertility. And another doctor that we know in Massachusetts says he has a success rate of 64% for primary infertility for women under the age of 40, and 64%, and a little bit lower for women for secondary infertility if they're older also. But the reason that these, and also let me explain, in IVF, it's touted as, oh, this is the solution for everybody, but they only have about a 30% success rate. But it's told to couples like, this is your only way to get pregnant. And, I've been there. I went to a traditional, obstetrician, gynecologist who basically didn't really know what to do with me. Put me on Clomid, which is a drug that a lot of women are put on to stimulate ovulation. I actually don't have a problem ovulating. But nonetheless, I was given the drug, and after a few cycles, he's like, well, I really don't have any options for you. And that was that. That was the end of the journey with him. And so I had to seek out other treatment. Well, he did actually send me to a specialist who basically does IVF, but it was this whole like, oh, well, you're Catholic, and well, yes, I am Catholic, and I actually, and he's supposedly Catholic too, but I was actually really practicing Catholic, so I wasn't going to do what he wanted me to do, so that was when I sought out NAPRO technology. And I had a doctor, there's nobody in my area, or South Florida, we're from Miami, who specializes in this. My doctor was in New York, but through the technology and email and faxes and all those things, I could send her my charts and she could help me over the phone. And though I never achieved a pregnancy, with NAPRO technology, I will say that the method does look very much at the individual, as opposed to the traditional medical doctor where it was like, okay, well, I'm just going to give you this medicine because this is what I give everybody. They looked at, these are your blood tests, these are your hormone levels. I think you need a little bit more of this, and you need, maybe this would help you. So it was very tailored to my specific person. So in that sense, I think even if a woman doesn't achieve a pregnancy, she could just be healthier in general because they're looking at the woman as an individual, right? So it's very, and it's all not, obviously everything's, they're not going to do anything that's illicit as far as NAPRO technology, and I liked that it was very personalized, and like I said, I never, achieved what I went in there for. In theory, I was going to try to achieve a pregnancy, but nonetheless, I was happy with the treatment and happy with the doctor and the whole process. And unfortunately, because our society is so, fast-paced and instant gratification, NAPRO does take a lot longer because they do these very extensive analyses. You have to do blood work where you have to go every other day for a cycle and draw blood, and they want to look at the whole cycle. How are your hormone levels? They want to do ultrasounds. They just want to do a very good analysis of what's going on. So that takes a lot longer. than simply saying, well, what you need is IVF and we're just going to do that. So, some people just aren't really willing to wait. They really want a baby and they want it now. And so they aren't looking at the long-term picture. And another thing is that NAPRO, once they do achieve a pregnancy, they have a very high success rate of having another child, because once they've also healed those situations, infertility, they view it as not a disease, it's a symptom of a disease. For example, maybe you have polycystic ovarian syndrome, and so your hormones aren't exactly doing what they should be doing on a regular cycle. So if we get the hormones under control and you achieve a pregnancy, it's much more likely that you can then achieve another pregnancy down the line, right? So it's also, as far as long-term, it obviously has better results. And sometimes also couples, for example, they just don't even know natural family planning in general. It's not just about NAPRO, they don't know their cycles. I mean, they aren't taught that. So if we're teaching couples natural family planning as part of marriage prep, that right there is giving them a huge tool that, if they're faced with this, they already know so much more about their bodies, they know so much more about, their fertility, and they're just more informed in general. So as Catholic family life ministers, basically, we're called to walk alongside. We're called to support these couples, and these couples are out there, and obviously the numbers are increasing, and as couples get married, then there's new couples who come into this group, and there's a lot of challenges that are involved, in infertility. A lot of infertile couples have high divorce rates. I mean, it's a very stressful situation. It becomes all-consuming for couples. This is what they focus on. This is all they think about. They want a baby and they can't have a baby, and that's, for a woman especially, I mean, their cycle, they think about every little tinge, everything that happens to them, they think about that, and it's like, okay, maybe I'm getting pregnant, maybe I can't this cycle, the hope, and it's a roller coaster. And for couples also, if one of the couples has an issue and the other one doesn't, it's very easy to blame the other person, and that causes a lot of tension in a marriage. So some couples, unfortunately, just can't deal with that, and that's why it's very important if we can talk about this during marriage prep and plant those seeds and have the couples at least have a conversation before they get married. It helps them, like, okay, they're already prepared. Like, my husband and I knew that we wanted to adopt. I mean, it was irregardless of infertility. We just had talked about this since before we got married. It was something we wanted to do. It's part of our plan as God allowed us to do that. We wanted to adopt children. So when we faced infertility, I mean, it was something we wanted to do. We were kind of waiting to do it. We thought, well, we'll have biological children first, because obviously there is a time frame within which you can do that, and we'll do that later. And then we just really prayed about it. We're like, well, maybe God is calling us to do this now. And, we really discerned it, and when God wants something, it happens, right? So within 6 months, we had 2 kids. So that's kind of how that works. But that was something we had talked about before. So it was kind of a natural thing for us to then go there and think, okay, well, maybe God is calling us to adopt at this point, and not when maybe we had thought. Obviously, it's not our plan, it's God's plan. So, planting those seeds early is very important. So it creates a lot of intimacy issues. Obviously, this, people just feel like, sex is a chore. I have to do this at a certain time. I have to, take advantage of the fertile period of the time of the month, and it becomes very difficult for couples. A lot of pressure. But it's also a psychological problem. It's not just the physical, okay, I need to go to the doctor and I need to go see the specialist. We need to also deal with the psychological, the difficulty. That's where the ministering comes in. So a lot of couples can really benefit from counseling, but it's very important that if we refer people to counseling, we're obviously referring them to good Catholic, Christian counselors. We've had couples who have just gone with whoever would be covered by their insurance, and they've gone to see a psychologist, and the psychologist has told them things that are really outlandish and things that are harmful to the individual. And so it's important, maybe we could have for different dioceses to have a list of good Catholic counselors that you can refer people to, so that okay, if I'm referring somebody here, I know that what they're going to get is good advice, sound Catholic teaching and not something that's going to, in the end, harm that couple and that marriage. So it's good to keep that in mind. And also, we can't assume that couples' consciences are fully formed. Unfortunately, most people don't really know about church teaching on a lot of issues, and sexuality and all of these things involved with that are just a big area where people would rather not know, because it's just easier not to. It's easier, and a lot of people, if they've made, let's say, some choices that weren't as good early on, it's easier to then continue making those choices and not be informed and not learn, and so there has to be a healing process also, and we need to really challenge people. I think sometimes we as a church sometimes fall into this, we don't want to challenge people, we just want to give them sympathy, like, it's okay, you want a baby, and that's a good thing, and obviously that is a very good thing, to want to have children and to want to share your love with a child, but that doesn't mean that you have a blank check to do whatever you want. And I think sometimes we're afraid to tell people that. And we really need to challenge people and just plant those seeds, and sometimes we're going to be the only ones challenging people because maybe the grandparents just really want a grandbaby, and they're just going to tell them, do IVF, and they're not going to understand, that maybe they don't want to. So as a church, we really need to hold them accountable, and also to make them think, do you really want, do you need to achieve a pregnancy, or do you want to be parents? That was something that a friend of ours who ultimately adopted, she went and she did IUI, they did all sorts of treatments, and she admits, she's like, I didn't want to know what the church taught. Like, I just didn't want to know. And so she did all sorts of things, and then at some point, she's like, what do I want? Do I want to be pregnant, or do I want to be a mom? And ultimately it was to be a mom, and not to achieve a pregnancy. And so they adopted, and they have, a wonderful son, and they're very happy, and they're hoping to adopt again. So I think sometimes we get so focused, and the couples get so focused on a certain, I want to be pregnant or have this pregnancy, that they lose sight of the bigger picture, which is parenthood and having your family with children, and it's not necessarily just, achieving a pregnancy.